Sometimes I think they can't be this stupid. It must be for a nefarious purpose. And then other times, I do truly think Trump is just too stupid and doesn't understand how tariffs work. And it's not that hard of a concept. There is the Fox pregame interview that we were going to watch, but you know what? Actually, we'll start here and then we'll go back to Israel, Palestine.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Happy Super Bowl.
Thank you.
You know, you are going to be the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl. It's a big day for America, always is. What made you want to do it?
Well, first of all, I'm very surprised to hear that. I would have assumed many presidents came, but I think just the spirit of the country's taken on a whole new life. I thought it would be a good thing for the country to have the president be at the game.
I mean, it's an iconic day.
It's an iconic day. It's going to be a great game, two great teams, and let's see what happens.
You know, it seems the first days of this administration are like a no-huddle offense. You know, plays going down the field, one after another. There's a long list of things you've already got done in 3 weeks. Big border policy changes, ICE crackdowns on criminals, taking biological men out of women and girls' sports, big energy policy changes. So what's different with you and your administration? The difference between the 45th president and the 47th president?
Well, with the 45th, I had tremendous opposition, but I didn't know people, and I didn't have the kind of support that I needed. I put people in office, some really great ones, but I had some that I wouldn't have put. I would have, known better if it were a couple of years later, or if I had a little more experience in D.C. I was a New York person, not a D.C. person. And I had a lot of opposition. I just noticed, I looked on the stage for the recent inauguration, and I'm looking, it's like a who's who of Washington. Well, if you look on the stage for the first one, it was just the opposite.
So some of your plays have raised some questions and had some pushback.
Okay, Brett. Dial it back on the fucking football analogies. We get it. You love football. Jesus Christ.
19 states' attorneys general filed a lawsuit, and early Saturday, a judge agreed with them to restrict Elon Musk and his government efficiency team, Doge, from accessing Treasury Department payment and data systems. They said there was a risk of irreparable harm. What do you make of that? And does that slow you down on what you want to do?
No, I disagree with it 100%. I think it's crazy. And we have to solve the efficiency problem. We have to solve the fraud, waste, abuse, all the things that have gone in the government. You take a look at the USAID, the kind of fraud in there,
and you
where
found
the money's
significant
going.
things.
Well, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of money that's going to places where it shouldn't be going, where if I read a list, you'd say, this is ridiculous, and you've read the same lists, and there are many that you haven't even seen. It's crazy. It's a big scam. Now, there's some good money, and we can do that through any one of a number. I think I'd rather give it to Marco Rubio over at the State Department. Let him take care of the few good ones. So I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people.
Yeah, they're not abolishing U.S. aid. They're not like undermining American imperialism. They're just centralizing it, making it directly, bringing it back directly into the hands of the government. And it's not real waste that they're eliminating here. They're just marketing that. They're marketing it as whatever they think is like funny or stupid or things that they just don't like. Oh, they're doing gay plays or whatever. There's new parts of the interview that are being aired right now on Fox News.
This to happen to our country. We shouldn't have to be doing this.
You said the tariff is a beautiful word. There are some signs in the markets, consumer confidence, that they're a little jittery. So if all goes to plan, when do you think families will be able to feel prices going down, groceries, energy, or are you kind of saying to them, hang on, inflation may get worse until it gets better?
No, I think we're going to become a rich. Look, we're not that rich right now. We owe $36 trillion. That's because we let all these nations take advantage of us. Same thing, like $200 billion with Canada. We owe $300. We have a deficit with Mexico of $350 billion. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let that happen. In the meantime, they're building car plants in Mexico in order to sell cars in the United States. Our auto workers, look at the kind of support I had with auto workers. Republicans don't get that support. I got record support with auto workers. I won the Teamsters Union. I mean, no Republican wins the Teamsters Union. I had support like nobody's ever had because they know I'm right. So In Mexico, they're building car plants all over the place to make cars, sell them into the United States. I say, no way, you're not going to do that. We're going to put big tariffs on those cars. I don't want those cars. We can make those cars right here. You know, if you look at Canada, Canada has a very big car industry. They stole it from us. They stole it because our people were asleep at the wheel. So what happens is Canada's going to have our cars. We're going to take the car industry. If we don't make a deal with Canada, we're going to put a big tariff on cars, could be a 50 or 100%, because we don't want their cars. We want to make the cars in Detroit.
Sports has always been something.
It's so funny that he did NAFTA too the first time he was president, and yet he gets to act like it's totally a separate trade negotiation that happened without his influence.
Thought about how to try to bring the country together, to reach out or to find common ground. Have you thought about that or how that might go?
I'd love to do it. And I can tell you, just prior to COVID coming in, we were doing so well. The greatest we've ever done. There's never been an economy like ours. Anywhere in the world, we were doing so well. We're eating China's lunch. I tariffed China for $700 billion over a period of years. We were doing so well. And then we had the COVID. We had to worry about that, and we took care of it. We did a great job with it. And then it was back to business. But I would say this. We have to come together. But to come together, there's only one thing that's going to do it, and that's massive success. In my first term, when we hit that number, and I mean the day before I heard the word COVID or pandemic, they told me, sir, I think there's a pandemic. That was not a good thing. I said, tell me about pandemics. But the day before we hit that word, I had a meeting with political people and pollsters and everything else, and they said, sir, if George Washington and Abraham Lincoln got together and ran as president and vice president, they couldn't beat you. Our economy was so good. You know that. The best ever, the best we've ever had. And everybody was coming together. I was getting a call from very liberal people, senators, congressmen, people outside, people that normally weren't speaking to me. And they were all they were coming together. Then we had the pandemic, and it was back to work. We had to do that, and I was very proud to have handed over the country, and the stock market was higher than it was previous to the pandemic coming in. It was an amazing achievement. We did a good job, but it was a terrible thing all over the world. Think of it. Millions of people all over the world. Countries were destroyed, far worse than what happened to us. I mean, some countries they're still suffering from the throes of the pandemic. But the word is success. Success will bring the country together, but it's hard. And I say it's hard. I just signed a bill allowing for women not to have to be punished by men in sports. In other words, men are not going to be allowed to play in sports against women. It's ridiculous. You saw, I quoted a couple of things, long distance race where the man won by 5 hours and 25 minutes. 5 hours and 25 minutes, not by 12 seconds. Boxing, you see what happens there. Weightlifting, they're setting records where hundreds of pounds more. It's the craziest thing. Now, we're never going to change, and perhaps they're never going to change, because I saw that after I signed the bill, the Democrats were complaining about it. They want men to play in women's sports. Open borders. I don't want to have open borders. I want to have very strong borders. I want people to come in, but they have to come in legally, and they have to love our country. They have to be capable. They have to be merit. We won a big Supreme Court case. It's called merit-based. We have the right to have merit-based
All right, let's
employment.
talk about.
So it's hard to come together.
So move on, Mr. President.
Some people want a closed border, and some people want an open border. Some people want men playing in women's sports. Some people are big in transgender. The Republican Party isn't. With all of that being said, we were coming together when the country was the most successful it ever was, which was not very long ago during my term.
You say you trust Elon. I mean, you can't imagine a scenario where you would have to rail him in or set up guardrails for him.
Well, I think I have guardrails. Yeah, Elon is somebody that I have a lot of respect for, but you have to have guardrails. He reports to me, and he's doing a fantastic job. I wanted somebody who's extremely intelligent. He's that. He's also a good cost cutter. You can't send an average person into that quagmire. It's a very dangerous quagmire. I watched some of these horrible people like Maxine Waters, real sleaze, and I watched her screaming at the security guard or whoever he was. Actually, he was pretty cool.
At the Department of Education.
He was pretty cool, standing in front of the Department of Education. She's only looking for trouble. She's not looking to help people
He was pretty
learn.
cool.
Look, Tell Maxine and all of her friends that we're last in education. Out of 40 states, we're last. We're number 40. But we're number 1 in cost per pupil. That's all you have to know. We have to make a change. I want to send education back to the states. You know, if you send education to Iowa and to Indiana and to a lot of these states that are so good, to Idaho, they have no debt, they have no crime, they have no this, they have no that. It's like perfect, because the best states are, if you look at the list of the top, the best countries for education, it's Norway and Sweden and Denmark and Finland. And by the way, China's right up there in the top 5, which is pretty amazing for those that say it's too big for that. It's rated in the top 5. We're number 40. And we can have, if you take those states and many others, I think 35 states, they would be as good as Denmark and Norway. They would be as good as the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. They'd be in there. But on a countrywide basis, I think we have 35 states would be in that category. Then you'd have 5 or 6 that would be mediocre. And then you'd have the same ones that are bad on crime and bad on everything probably would be bad on education, but they'd almost be forced to get better. But you could take New York as an example, and you don't have to do 1. You do 5 or 6. You do Suffolk County, you do Nassau County, you do Westchester County, and then you do upstate New York, and you do Manhattan. You know, you have 5 or 6 or 7, and they'd be small enough where they could really give some personalized education. Also, the spotlight would be on them. It wouldn't be a country. It would be just on Manhattan, or it would be on Nassau County or Westchester County.
It's wild that he's just talking about countries with
we sent them back, our
almost
educational
entirely
system would
public
be double,
education structures.
and it would cost probably half. You know what, Brett? It would cost much.
Working to decentralize education to make it
buildings
easier to privatize. Like, his goal is to decentralize education and easily privatize it. Ironically, while pointing to countries where it's almost entirely public.
Around the world, I want to hit a few quickly. With Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, you said this.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it.
That caught a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah, some positive.
Some positive, but even some of your supporters wondered whether that meant U.S. troops were going to have to be going into a dangerous Middle East conflict.
No troops.
So where is it today?
I've been watching 50 years, 60 years. They go in, they occupy, they get slaughtered, everything's terrible, everyone leaves, they go back. This has been going on for forever, right? Forever. Now it's essentially a demolition site. There's practically no building that's livable in the whole thing, on the whole Gaza Strip. I say, we go in, we knock them all down, we just create something. No more Hamas, there's no Hamas there, there's nobody there. We move them into beautiful areas of the Middle East. I'd like to go to Egypt. They have a lot of land. I'd like to go to Jordan. I'd like to go to others. And we'll build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2. But we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
Spent. No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them, because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever, it's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen. I'm talking about starting to build, and I think I could make a deal with Jordan. I think I could make a deal with Egypt. You know, we give them billions and billions of dollars a year.
So when you hear the pushback from the Middle East, what do you think?
I don't hear that much pushback. A lot of people thought it was a great idea.
It's insane.
Really, a lot of people. And I'm not talking about big money.
He's talking about the Israelis.
It would be stabilized if the United States owns the Gaza Strip. If people aren't living in the Gaza Strip,
the only people that don't think
isn't there,
the
people
Israelis
aren't there, nobody's going to be there. And later on, it can be developed. You'll give some to Saudi Arabia.
So you're not saying U.S. troops?
No, you don't need no. Israel will watch it, because it's right next to Israel.
And what's the time frame? Do you have a time frame?
I would say let it start almost immediately. I would like to get some land from these others. We'll get Saudi Arabia. We'll get some of the great people. We have incredible people in the Middle East. We'll get these people to finance it. It's not a lot of money. You're talking about building 1.8 million houses. That's not a lot of people, you know, relative to other problems in the world. When you look at what's going on in Ukraine, when you look at what's going on in other places, I mean, in Ukraine,
how is that not as big as a problem, if not much larger?
Already between Ukraine and Russia, it's horrible.
Well, let's talk about that. I know you want a Ukraine Russia peace deal, but how do you get both sides to the table?
I think it's going to happen. I think we've made tremendous progress in the last week.
Is
We're
it just a
dealing
little
with the
bit of ethnic
Russians, we're
cleansing?
dealing
What's
with
the
the
problem?
Ukrainians. I think there's going to be something done, I hope.
Zelensky
And
says
you know
that
what,
he's up to doing some equity deal where you get rare earth minerals or
Well,
something.
I've asked them, look, the United States is in for more than $300 billion, probably 350, and Europe's in for probably $100 billion. We're in for more than twice, maybe even 3 times what they are. This should have never happened. Biden should have never let that happen. You know, it happened with NATO when I got in and I equalized. I had it equalized and raised hundreds of billions of dollars. NATO became very rich after me. We were paying almost all of NATO. It was unfair. We take care of the military and then they take advantage of us on trade. You know, they're very tough. I'll tell you what, the EU on trade is horrible. But NATO was very unfair, and I made it fair. I said, look, if you don't pay, we're not going to defend you. And the money came in like nobody's ever seen before.
So
the
you think there's a
Secretary
deal
General
with
just
Ukraine?
left. He said, I've never seen anything. When Trump left, all of a sudden the money started rolling in. These people were all delinquent. By the way, Canada is a very low, you know, we were talking about Canada. Canada is just about the lowest payer in the whole thing, which is very unfair. You know why they're low payer? Because they think the United States is going to take care of them. You think that's fair? It's not fair.
Yeah. Ukraine, though, you think you can get a deal? Do you keep
think so.
sending American weapons until you do?
No, what I'm saying is the following. They have tremendously valuable land in terms of rare earth, in terms of oil and gas, in terms of other things. I want to have our money secured because we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars. And, you know, they may make a deal, they may not make a deal, they may be Russian someday, or they may not be Russian.
Quiet,
Some have
baby.
all this
Look,
money
look,
in it,
he's
and
doing
I
it
say,
again.
I want it back. And I told them that I want the equivalent, like $500 billion of earth, and they've essentially agreed to do that. So at least we don't feel stupid. Otherwise, we're stupid. I said to them, we have to get something. We can't continue to pay this money. You know,
But on the Russian side, how do you get Putin? Do you squeeze him to get him to the table? I mean,
it would have, look, I say it all the time, this would have never happened if I were president. If the election weren't rigged, this would have never happened. And let's see whether or not Fox lets you put that in, okay? If the election weren't rigged, do you hear me, rigged? Let's see, I mean, this would have never happened. It wouldn't happen with Putin, and October 7th would have never happened either. Iran was broke. They were down to their last very small amount of money. Now they have $350 billion, but they have other problems. And, you know, let's go back over there, because I'm the weaver. I'm the great weaver. You know that,
Trust
right?
me.
Okay? I'm the great. Somebody said, oh, he rambled. No. Only the fake news says that. To weave, you have to be brilliant. To ramble, you don't have to be brilliant.
I'll just get back in the weave there.
No,
I had
but,
to get you back there.
but I like the
He's
weave.
like, come on, dude, wrap it up.
It covers it much more quickly. But if you look at October 7th, Hamas had no money because Iran wasn't able to pay them. Iran had no money. They were down, you know, I had sanctions on them, tremendous sanctions. China wasn't buying oil. I told China, if you buy oil from them, you can't do business with the United States. They took a pass. They were down to nothing. Now they are up to a tremendous amount of money.
You think there's a deal there in Iran?
Yeah, I think we're going to make a deal in Iran. I would rather, okay, and you know, there are a lot of people think that we are going to attack
Or Israel,
Iran.
with our blessing.
Or Israel, but Israel needs us. Everybody needs us. We have the weapons, we have the strength. We're very strong. I rebuilt our military. People forget, I rebuilt our military. Now, they shouldn't have given a lot to Afghanistan, which they did. They gave a lot. There was no reason for that. But we're very strong. We have things that nobody else has. So they need us. But everyone thinks Israel, with our help or our approval, will go in and bomb the hell out of them. I would prefer that not happen. I'd much rather see a deal with Iran where we can do a deal, supervised, check it, inspect it, and then blow it up, or just make sure that there's no more nuclear. That we just
A better deal than the Obama nuclear deal.
Well, that was the dumbest deal. By the way, that would have expired by now.
Only
That was
because
a
Israel didn't
road
like it,
to a
Chad.
nuclear weapon. It was a short-term deal. You can make a deal with just a few years on it. That deal would be expired by now. Think of it. And they would have a legal right to have a nuclear weapon. You cannot allow Iran, or just about anybody else, by the way, but especially Iran, because they are very militant. I mean, they're very, very militant. You can't allow them to have a nuclear weapon. But there's two ways of stopping them, with bombs or with a written piece of paper. And I'd much rather do a deal that's not going to hurt them. And I think they wanted to. I think that Iran is very concerned. I think that Iran is very frightened, to be honest with you, because their defense is pretty much gone. Maybe they're trying to get new defense as we speak, meaning air defense. But their defense is largely gone. They've had some very bad moments. The whole thing with the pagers was a disaster for them, the pagers, you know what I'm talking about. It was a horrible thing, but it was, it knocked out a lot of leadership like nobody's ever seen before.
Holy shit, he said it was a horrible thing.
I think Iran is very nervous. I think they're scared. I think Iran would love to make a deal, and I would love to make a deal with them without bombing them.
So Iran, you think a deal's possible. China, you're saying maybe there's a deal possible? Have you talked to President Xi?
I think that China is so economic, it's so trade-based, and look, Biden allowed China to go crazy. And we have a deficit with China of over $1 trillion a year. Can you believe it? But with all of that said, China needs us because they take out so much money out of the United States. We're not going to let them take out the kind of money they're taking out now, but we're going to let them take out money, and they're going to do very well. And we want them. I happen to like him a lot, President Xi. Yes, I love talking to him. He's
since the inauguration.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've talked to him, and I talk to his people too. His people come in all the time. We have a very good personal relationship. I don't want to sound foolish because
you had him here, Mar-a-Lago.
I had him here. I know him very well. I know him probably better than just about anybody in various parts of the world. I know Kim Jong-un from North Korea better than anybody. Most people never even will ever get to talk to him.
I was on that trip. I know. I remember it well.
You can attest to it.
I want to just hit on a couple other things. You had Republican senators here at Mar-a-Lago. They're in kind of a back and forth with the House about the one big beautiful bill, the two bills.
But not much, Brett.
Has anybody figured it out? Have you
say,
decided?
The relationship is incredible. We had about 50 of them here last night for dinner at Mar-a-Lago. I think John Thune is doing a fantastic job, and I think that the Speaker, Mike Johnson's doing a fantastic job.
This is the one thing that I'm jealous about with Republicans.
Literally
narrow majority.
Where they get to say stuff like this and everybody loves it. Where Trump can just say, like, I love China. Chinese prosperity is amazing. President Xi is a great leader. I'm a big fan of him. He's my favorite guy. He's my best bud. And Republicans be like, hell yeah, brother. That's how you do it. Diplomacy. Like, if Biden said that, someone would assassinate him. Okay? Like, if Biden was like, yeah, Xi's my little guy, someone would be like, okay, well, we have to kill him. He's the Manchurian candidate. You know what I mean? No Democrat is allowed to say,
they have a very dangerous
we got to do
thing.
diplomacy. Only dipshits like Trump get to say, I love China.
Ceiling. And the debt ceiling, I call it 1929 because, bad things can happen. It should be just psychological, but it's really probably more than that. We shouldn't have had it. It shouldn't have been ours. It should have been theirs, but somebody made a bad mistake, a stupid mistake, actually, and we inherited. But I can't imagine the Democrats don't want to take care of the debt ceiling because that could be an explosion, the likes of which we've never seen. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's very important that we do the tax bill, and I can't see the Democrats giving people the largest tax increase in history. So we have to extend it and I think make it better, make it even more productive. We can do things that we did even better than we did during the Trump tax breaks.
And you want to raise defense spending?
We want to raise defense spending. I think we have to have it. One of the reasons I can speak with authority is we really do have amazing military, but they're also getting bigger. One of the things I'll be doing with President Xi, and
one of the craziest things is that Donald Trump designed the first tax cuts to sunset by the time he was out of office and inevitably hand that to the Democrats as like a tax increase. But he didn't win the second time. So now he's the president. As the tax cuts that he pushed for the middle class and below are slated to sunset. And now he's the president, so he can make it permanent. So it literally worked out in his favor.
Crazy to spend the money on things that hopefully aren't going to be used.
I mean, the tough part is that if you don't want to cut entitlements and you do want to add to defense spending and you want to eliminate taxes on tips and you want to make the 2017 tax cuts permanent, that's a lot of money.
But we're going to take in tremendous amounts of money on tariffs. We're going to have tariffs. We're going to take in tremendous amounts of money.
And you think Doge
because
is
it's
going to
unfair.
make up some
it's
difference?
Not Doge. Well, Doge is going to make up a lot, but that's unrelated to tariffs. It's not fair that other countries have really taken advantage of us, and it's our leader's fault, but I'm a different leader. It's not fair that other countries have taken advantage of us for so many years, and now all of a sudden we're not allowed to have tariffs, but they've had tariffs for years. You know, they've done this to us for years, and we haven't. And I think reciprocal tariffs, I'll be talking about it. I think probably on Monday or Tuesday I'll have a whole big thing. We have a very sophisticated plan. I want to have tariffs separately from that on steel, on autos,
Trump
on
and sophisticated
semiconductors and chips, and probably pharmaceuticals.
And you're not worried that any of that's going to go back to the consumer?
It might, but it's ultimately going to be much less expensive.
Oh!
I'll give you an example. The so-called fat drug or fat shot, whatever it's called, Ozempic or Mounjaro. In London, you get it for $88. In New York, you get it for $1,200. You can't even buy it. It's very unfair. The identical package made in the same factory, shipped to different places, but made literally in the same factory. In London, it's $88, and in New York, it's $1,200, and you can't get it. And the reason is because everything's added on to the United States because the United States has been too nice. You know, I had transparency done, and Biden canceled it. Transparency would have solved that problem. But I'm going to solve it one way or the other, including, you know, they have a certain thing like rent control in New York, and I don't like that. But at some point, nobody's going to, it's not fair that other countries, you go to Canada, all of the drugs are much less expensive. I suggested that some of the governors should go buy their drugs in Canada and send them back to here. It's very simple. So I think we're going to do some amazing things, really amazing things.
Last thing, I mean, you have a lot of things on your plate that you're going to do, but right now...
Well, you know, one thing I did last night that's very powerful, really, the straw. They gave us a paper straw. It melts. It's horrible. They should make it in flavors because by the time you finish, it is so horrible. I ended the paper straw. We're going to go back to plastic.
That might be a 90-10 issue.
It's about a 99.
No one loves the
soggy
straw.
This was a Biden issue, big Biden issue. I'm sure Biden really knew. Somebody put things in front of him and signed whatever they did. I think you're right. It's at least a 90% issue.
Right now, do you view Vice President J.D. Vance as your successor, the Republican nominee in 2028?
No, but he's very capable. I mean, I don't think that I think you have a lot of very capable people. So far, I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's too early. We're just starting. I will say...
But by the time you get to the midterms, he's going to be looking for an endorsement.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that this has been the greatest opening, almost 3 weeks, in the history of the presidency.
It's definitely been the fastest and the most stuff happening.
We've done so much
he's
fast.
In the
and we really had to because they have really, what they've done to our country is so sad. It's so sad.
No smile.
We're going to be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
Mr. President, we appreciate all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brett.
Bro, that's so funny. J.D. Vance is
Bring
so
that
cucked.
full interview to you. Up next, President Trump taking executive action just moments ago in the Oval Office. We will go to the White House for an update. Plus, the panel on my interview with the president.
I love this because he's like, oh, the fat drug, which, you know, hilarious that he doesn't, he's like the fat shot is so expensive in America, right? And what's the solution to the price? Adding additional charges to the American middleman. Instead of regulating the American middlemen, instead of doing mass purchases of pharmaceuticals and actually bargaining on the price point at the point of purchase, what we should do is put additional tariffs, like another costly thing that will drive up the cost of this medicine for the average consumer. Great idea. Trump spoke at length about Gaza. Rewind 10 minutes.
Other things we'll be doing. But the biggest thing is reciprocal. We want tariffs to be fair. If they charge us, we charge them.
Tomorrow, the reciprocal tariffs?
We'll be doing reciprocal over the next I would say 2 days, don't you think? 2 days, yeah, maybe.
Yes, I heard the JD Vance shade. He was like, no.
Prime Minister has said that you are considering an exemption for Australia on steel. Is that correct? And why?
I just spoke to him, very fine man, and he has a surplus. I mean, we have a surplus with Australia, one of the few. And the reason is they buy a lot of airplanes. They are rather far away, and they need lots of airplanes. And we actually have a surplus. It's one of the only countries which we do. And I told him that that's something that we will give great consideration to.
And would you consider one for the UK as well?
I regularly go
we
back
have a
and
huge
forth
deficit.
on whether or not Americans in charge are actually stupid or nefarious. Sometimes I think they can't be this stupid. It must be for a nefarious purpose. Like they want to privatize everything. That's why they're acting like they want to do austerity so they can privatize and make money off of it. And then other times, I do truly think Trump is just too stupid and doesn't understand how tariffs work. And it's not that hard of a concept. I honestly don't think, I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, he wants to do tariffs because like he has this nefarious purpose behind it. He wants to bully certain sector leaders because like ultimately the people that you're punishing when you do tariffs are obviously always going to be the people that are, you know, in the import-export business. So it's Americans and American consumers that'll get harmed by this. But I do sometimes think he's just like very stupid. That's it.
You don't have a deficit with Argentina. Is that country also going to be?
We have a little deficit with Argentina. Almost with every country, but Australia, because of the airplanes, they buy a lot of airplanes.
Like the notion that like somehow adding tariffs to Ozempic is going to make Ozempic cheaper, that's insane. Like that makes no sense. Like that's just literally the opposite, right? So he can't, like, what's the nefarious secret propaganda purpose behind him saying this? There is none. I think sometimes it's just him being stupid. This is one of those moments. He won't actually set price checks. He won't actually set price controls on pharmaceuticals. He won't actually implement pharmaceutical bargaining, right? At the point of purchase. He won't do bulk purchase of pharmaceuticals because that would be like socialization of some sort. So he's just like, we're going to put tariffs. Like intrinsically, he understands that there's a need to lower the cost of pharmaceuticals because he reads the room. But he's too stupid and also, I guess, too nefarious in the sense that he knows that he can't actually advocate to lower the price of pharmaceuticals because that's, you know, American businesses would never allow that. He talked about tariffs decades ago and didn't say anything about them in his last term. Yes, he did. He put tariffs on steel. What are you talking about? Carl Icahn left his administration because of some of his tariffs. He did tariffs in the first time, too. That was the one instance where his donors were actually pissed off. Yeah, he put tariffs on China. This time he's going way harder on the tariffs, though.
It's a little bit of a surplus.
Mr. President, if other countries retaliate,
I don't mind.
What is your plan for example, farmers? Last term, you...
Well, the farmers are going to be
Would
helped
you do that
greatly.
again?
Yeah, the farmers are going to be helped greatly because they're not going to be dumping everything into our country. This will be a great bill for farmers. And in terms of retaliate, it's, as I said, it's reciprocal. So if they raise it a little bit, then we raise it.
Yeah, he put tariffs first term to destroy NAFTA and create new USA-Mexico-Canada deal that he now hates. Yeah. He's like, who did that Mexico deal and Canada deal? I hate that guy. I hate it. NAFTA too, they're calling it. I think it was Biden.
Automatically. So I don't think it helps for them to retaliate. But also remember this, they can't really retaliate because we're the piggy bank. We're the piggy bank. But if we don't do this, we won't be the piggy bank for long. We won't be much of a country.
Mr. President, did you see that report, sir, that Hamas was going to stop releasing Israeli hostages, and what was your reaction?
I think it's terrible. Look, I looked at the hostages that came in, and they're emaciated.
What? Someone in the chat says, shouldn't we support the annexation of Canada because it will give America more trains? No, chatter. Okay, you're joking. But also, no. I do not want to destroy Canada any further than it has already destroyed itself, okay? I know it's a joke.
It looked like something
At first
out
I
of the
thought you were...
1930s. It's an absolute disgrace. And I think they saw the way the world viewed it. and they're looking for a reason not to send more because they're all. You take a look at that. It looks like it was a concentration camp, which essentially it was. It looks like.
Oh yeah. By the way, Israel has made it illegal for NPR journalists to actually take photos of anything on the ground. According to NPR, I listened to this morning, and it's important to note that Israel prevented us, according to Jordanian authorities, from taking photographs on the ground of what we were seeing. The only thing we could take photos of once we landed were the buffer zone and the helicopter. So Israel is allowing some Americans to actually go along the Jordanian air corridor that they've created for aid, where the Jordanian Air Force is able to land on the outskirts of Gaza and basically deliver aid that way, even though trucks are obviously still far better and far faster at delivering a lot more aid. But they're still holding out on allowing as many trucks as possible. But the Israeli government is allowing people to basically go into Gaza now, foreign journalists to go into Gaza through that Jordanian air corridor, and they are not allowed to film anything on the ground, which is insane. Oh, one last thing from the Super Bowl, of course, is that Trump trolled Taylor Swift and mocked her for being booed at the Super Bowl. America is moving on. Liberalism is lost. Travis Kelce style liberalism is over, ladies and gentlemen. No more vaccines. Travis Kelce could not get the vaccine boost as Donald Trump is back in power. So obviously Taylor Swift is on the downtrend, and so is Travis Kelce, and so are vaccines. And apparently Taylor Swift was shown on the Jumbotron at the Super Bowl, and people were booing her. Let's take a look. Donald Trump tweeted out, the only one that had a tougher night than the Kansas City Chiefs was Taylor Swift. She got booed out of the stadium. MAGA is very unforgiving. When does the Houthi propaganda start? Don't worry, we'll get to doing some pro-Houthi propaganda in a little bit, okay? I love that is your subtle. When does the Houthi propaganda start? I've heard this is the #1 spot for Houthi propaganda. And got him. Now, what's interesting about this also is that Donald Trump is pro Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, he's pro Chiefs. So why is he dookie on the Chiefs here? The president reignited the bitter feud after making an early exit as the Kansas City Chiefs crumbled against the Philadelphia Eagles. Trump shared videos of Swift being heckled alongside this one of him receiving huge applause. Swift and Trump have a history of bad blood, with the president last year declaring, "I hate Taylor Swift" on social media after she endorsed Harris. So I don't know if this is directly a consequence of Taylor Swift. It could literally be. So Taylor Swift getting booed is a combination of different things. One, because there's a lot of like football gatekeepers out there who are like, oh, Taylor Swift brought a bunch of chicks to like this sport. I hate them. Then there's also the Eagles fans that will boo anyone and everyone that they've decided is against the Eagles. And Taylor Swift obviously dating Travis Kelce means that she's a beacon of anti-Eagle fandom. And therefore, they're going to boo everyone. They would boo Donald Trump too. Eagles fans don't like Donald Trump either because Donald Trump is pro Kansas City Chiefs. And as a matter of fact, took photos with, wished the Kansas City Chiefs well, and wanted them to win, predicted that they would win. So this defeat was a defeat for Donald Trump as well. He also took a photo with the Mahomes family as well, as you can see here. So the reality of the matter is she's literally a lifelong Eagles fan though. Oh, Taylor Swift is? I didn't know that. You know, why are we not? Put some terrorist propaganda. Dude, I love that the people that get primed to become haters are so stupid that like they can't even do good enough critique. Or they like this guy got so horny he couldn't even write like a fully fleshed out thought. He was just like, boy, why not put the terror propaganda? Like, sick, man. You got me. Is awesome. I heard this is place for terror propaganda. Very nice. I really hated during the election when people kept saying that Taylor could get her fans to vote for Kamala. Like, those are white women. At least 50% of them voted for Trump if they voted at all. Oh, yeah. No, more than 50%. But here it is. That chatter has been following for almost 3 years and then said that. Yeah. We activated the sleeper cells. Asmongold fans. But yeah, Donald Trump is the reason why the Chiefs lost, I think, and the Eagles actually destroyed them. I will continue saying that over and over again. Okay? What is this? Is this lib cope? Trump at the Super Bowl was soundly booed and hissed, heard clearly international coverage and commented on in multiple countries. US TV networks overlaid canned cheers instead. Oh my God, that's amazing. Liberals are so funny. Donald Trump is literally more popular than at any other point in his career, in his tenure. Okay? That's wild. That, like, I wouldn't be shocked if many football fans were cheering for Donald Trump. Okay? I'm getting tons of fake booing clips on TikTok. It's gross. I mean, who cares? Who cares? Not according to recent Pew polling. No, he has like 53% approval rating. What are you talking about? Interesting numbers in the new CBS poll. Trump is up 10 plus in approval with voters under 30. A stadium full of millionaires? Wake up, everybody. There are people in this country that are sick and tired of the incompetence of the government. So even if Trump is doing bad things, right? Like things that will inevitably lead to bad results for the broader electorate, they still see this as like, well, at least he's doing something. People don't have the capacity to look at these actions and analyze it as a bad thing. And especially when you don't have any counter messaging, and that the party that is supposed to be the counterbalance to Donald Trump's actions are incredibly unpopular and are not really doing anything, seemingly, okay? Especially on the heels of a decrepit carcass leading the momentum, leading the Democratic Party, okay? Yes, a lot of people just go, oh, well, he's doing something. I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing something, and I like it. That's it, okay? People have a lot of anger and resentment towards gridlock. They hate it so much. No, it's just that America's naturally right-wing. That's ridiculous, okay? No country is just naturally right-wing. Please. When you say decrepit carcass, do you mean Biden or Schumer? I mean, all. Yes. My answer to that question is yes. I need you to understand that. Okay? This is not a reaction. This is not a reaction to like Donald Trump doing things that he promised that we really like. It's more so a reaction to Donald Trump doing things in general and also consistently communicating that he's doing things. This is cope. Americans have only received mass deportations from Trump's promises, and his approval rating is going up. They're naturally right-wing. I don't know. I really don't think our political positions are as popular as you think they are. Heard this was the place for leftist woke pedophilia and massive disappointment. What? Heard this was the place for woke leftist baby murder. So far, I am very underwhelmed. What is going on here, man? What is happening? Okay. Number one, there is no such thing as like a naturally reactionary disposition that would require you to just completely cast aside any sort of materialist analysis. That would require you to assume, that would require you to say that like these people are unsavable, unsalvageable. Americans need to be left in the dust. They are just evil. It is inherently liberal ways of thinking, good, bad dynamics, things of that nature. Okay. It is very stupid. It is not correct. No one is like intrinsically good or intrinsically bad. Okay. People do bad things. People do good things, but they are motivated by their social conditioning and motivated by their material realities. Okay. Assuming an incredibly nihilistic position like this will lead you astray. Okay. You will find yourself in the throes of reactionary sentiment if this is something that you personally believe. That's number one. Number two, time and time again, I have shown you that Americans are actually historically in favor of immigration for obvious reasons. This is a nation comprised entirely of immigrants with the exception of Native Americans. Everyone that lives here on U.S. soil now that is a natural-born U.S. citizen actually can trace their lineage to a ancestor that was not on this continent with the exception of Native Americans, whether it be by way of chattel slavery and the forcible extraction of men and women from African soil, okay, or whether it be the massive influx of migration patterns, okay, that have basically designed this country, okay? That's it. Go far back enough, with the exception of Native Americans, every single person, okay, every single person currently living inside of the United States of America has an ancestor that is not from the United States of America, okay? So it's idiotic. And of course, the American opinions reflect that reality. That is precisely the reason why I kept maintaining the position over and over again that if you scratch the surface of all of the information that shows, 60% of Americans want mass deportations or whatever, if you actually read after that initial point, almost all of these studies show that Americans, when given two different positions, will always take the more pro-migration position. When faced with two choices, mass deportation and mass amnesty, Americans overwhelmingly and consistently have chosen mass amnesty. The issue, however, is that there is no counterbalance to the anti-immigration position from the Republican Party. That is the problem. Okay? That is the major problem. That is the issue here. It is that Democrats and the media have completely dropped the ball, and that the only kind of narrative you heard for the past 4 years about migration was negative. Okay? It is born out of lies. It is born out of abject lies. The idea that undocumented migrants are actually causing a lot of crimes or anything like that. Okay? And yet, if lies are the only thing that you hear and there is no counterbalance, no actual counter to this misinformation from a competent party that is supposed to be addressing these lies and combating them by saying the truth, then yes, people are inevitably going to believe that. Okay? That's it. Democrats caving and capitulating to the Republican lies surrounding immigration and the dangers of immigration is directly responsible for Americans assuming that every single person is just like an abhorrent, morally repugnant monster that just wants every migrant to be killed. Okay? That's it. Are we pretending like Dems are in support of this, like Biden and Obama didn't exist? What do you mean? No, I'm currently explaining to you how the Democrats' incompetence on this issue and caving and capitulating to the right-wing sentiment that undocumented migrants are responsible for a larger share of crimes than they actually are is quite literally the reason why Americans are left to believe that immigrants are a net negative to this country when it's, the exact opposite. When you have no leadership and no counterbalance to growing fascism, yes, Americans are going to start assuming that Americans are going to look at this and go, this is it. This is who we are. This is what we like. Have you not been to New York? What do you mean? Affects economy for 10 years negatively? That is also profoundly untrue. Anyway, so having said that, this is what happens when there is no alternatives, seemingly no alternatives to what the Republicans are pushing for when they're the only game in town. Okay? But do not let this delude you. Do not let this push you into this misguided position that Americans are irredeemable monsters in general. Okay? Most people don't even think about the immediate impact of the legislation that they're pushing for. Okay? There is perhaps no greater evidence of this than what happened with abortion. Many people who were pro restricting abortion realized that once it became the reality, maybe it wasn't the best possible outcome. The idea that all Americans are making coherent political decisions is idiotic. Okay? It's just as idiotic as coming into this chat and saying, why does Hasan like terrorists like this guy just did, only to get banned quickly? I like that back in the day when he was a fan, he actually spelled my name correctly. But now that I'm a pro-terrorist guy in his eyes, it's now with 2 S's. I'm going to ban this guy. Anyway, you say left-wing policies are so popular. However, when Americans find out it's associated with the left wing, they freak out. This is why Bernie couldn't even win the primary and gain enough support among liberals. Twice, by the way, people associated him with far-left commie socialists, regardless of if he is or not. Yes, you're right. That's why Bernie Sanders, who is an open socialist for his entire career, has been the most popular, singularly most popular politician in this country in perpetuity. You're right. And that is precisely the reason why he was unable to come out of the Democratic Party's primaries, a process that is basically designed to ensure that whichever the party's candidate actually is is the one that they go with in the future. Okay? Something that they've defended, the DNC has actively defended in the courts, that there is no real Democratic primary that takes place and that they could simply choose whoever they want. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you recall, but in the last primary structure, there was no real opponents for a literal carcass. And the ways in which they removed that literal carcass from the top of the ticket was also done behind closed doors, which the Democratic Party has every right to do so, mind you. Whether you like it or not doesn't change that reality. It is funny, though, that you come in here with this approach when it is obviously wrong. You don't like Israel, end of story. Wait, what? Anyway, yeah, Elon Musk is leading a group of investors to offer to buy OpenAI, which is terrifying. But let's get back to this. President Trump signs proclamation regarding Gulf of America Day. Another insanely idiotic, like just pure aesthetic thing that Trump is doing.
Now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Find a secretarial order from
Standing next to my goat, Bergamaniacs Rise Up. Bergam taking an active role in this administration is something that only I am excited about. Aren't you one of those college kids? You are brainwashed. I can't trust anything you say. Ismail, please. There's enough people who are coming in here with idiotic takes. You don't have to LARP as one, okay? I'm going to give you a day off for that. This is your second warning. There's already enough people in here that unironically come in and organically say those things. You don't also have to LARP as one, okay? Oh, they don't LARP. They're just like that.
as Secretary of Interior, directing the U.S. Geologic Survey, who is responsible for the database, which is the Geographic Names Informational System. And so just prior to this signing, if you will, the button was pushed. It became official with this proclamation to call today Gulf of America Day. But now it's going...
Sick.
But we have a long way to go. We have to look, we have to find all of the fraud that's going on. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste, and tremendous abuse. And theft, by the way.
United States.
And the day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
Mr. President,
I gotta pee.
Gulf of America, Canada, Greenland, Gaza, all these are very muscular foreign policy. How does this align with America first?
Because it makes us bigger, stronger, and better, and more protective. We need Greenland because of national security, international security, world peace. And we'll have to do that. Canada, we'll see what happens with Canada, but the people of Canada would be paying less than half of the tax. If you look at the tax, they're going to be paying less than half the tax. You know, they don't pay very much for military, and the reason they pay much is they assume that we're going to protect them. That's not an assumption they can make, because why are we protecting another country? Now, I love the people of Canada. We have a great relationship. But if they became our 51st state, it would be the greatest thing they could ever do. It would be unbelievable. It would be a cherished state. And think of how beautiful that country would be without that artificial line running right through it. Somebody drew it many years ago with a ruler, just a line. You look at how beautiful that is, wow, it would be very exciting. But if you look at Canada, it would be cherished as a 51st state. They don't pay their share of military in NATO. They pay very little for military. They're not protected at all. And the reason is they think we're going to protect them. The other thing is we subsidize them to the tune of about $200 billion a year. If we stop doing that, if we stop allowing them to make cars through tariffs and other things, cars, trucks, etc., what they make, they're not viable as a country.
So would you agree that it's a more aggressive foreign policy than your first term? And why is that?
It's more aggressive. It's better. Why? Because I think I've had a lot of experience. And in my first term, I was fighting everybody because they were very aggressive toward me. I always said survival and taking care of the country, not necessarily in that order. But I had to take care of the country, but I had a bunch of lunatics like Pelosi and all of these people. They fought me, and we won. And, you know, I had a lot of other things that were going on there.
I love being the peaceful dove president who said we have to do ethnic displacement, ethnic cleansing in Gaza, no new wars, but also we have to do a permanent military installation in Gaza. And also simultaneously, we have to forcibly annex Canada and maybe Mexico and Panama. and also Greenland. It's cool. I love being the anti-war president. I love how he is the anti-war president. Yeah, it's dope. Super peaceful, super anti-war.
This time it's much more, they've lost their confidence. I think they've lost the respect of the American people with, you know, men participating in women's sports, with open borders, with transgender for everybody.
Yeah, I apologize. I said annex Mexico. He wants to just bomb Mexico. He doesn't want to annex Mexico. Too many Mexicans.
For all the things that they're doing is so bad. When you allow people to empty their jails into your country with prisoners, killers, their mental institutions and insane asylums into our country. This is what they're doing. When you allow gang members from Venezuela, but many other countries coming into our country, we're getting them all out now. They've lost their credibility, but they've also lost their confidence. So I have more time to do what I want to do. So we're making our country larger. We're making our country stronger. And in the case of Canada, if this should happen, I don't know how they can do it without us, because without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a country. They do almost all of their business with us. And if we say we want our cars to be made in Detroit, with a stroke of a pen, I can do that. And other things in addition to that would not allow Canada to be a viable country.
You said you didn't want to honor first responders today, but you pardoned hundreds of people who assaulted first responders. Why did you do that?
Who?
You were going to meet with first responders today, but you pardoned people who assaulted first responders.
No, I pardoned people that were assaulted themselves. They were assaulted by our government. I pardoned J6 people who were assaulted by our government. That's who assaulted, and they were treated unfairly. There's never been a group of people in this country, outside of maybe one instance that I can think of, but I won't get into it, that were treated more horribly than the people of J6. So, no, I didn't assault. They didn't assault. They were assaulted. And what I did was a great thing for humanity. They were treated very, very unfairly.
They were treated so unfairly that so many of them immediately are going back to prison or have been shot and killed by the police. There's like, there are multiple child molesters, you know, just so unfairly that these guys are in prison. He should just double down and be like, no, it's a blanket pardon. Just come out and be like, yeah, you can do child molestation if you are a supporter of Donald Trump. Okay, at any given moment. It's a get out of jail free card.
There's never been an incident like this.
On tariffs, sir, on tariffs. Two more policy questions. On Putin again, you realize if you don't clarify that, everyone's going to assume you're talking to President Putin regularly. Are you? So is it?
It makes sense. Well, I don't want to talk about it, and if we are talking, I don't want to tell you about the conversation. It's too early, but I do believe we're making progress.
It's a secret. I won't tell you. This is a classic Trump too.
We want to stop the Ukraine-Russia war, and I want to stop it just because I hate to see all these young people being killed. The soldiers are being killed by the hundreds of thousands.
So you're starting to put together a plan for like a peace formula or for some sort of resolution?
We're talking to both sides.
And are you
He's
okay
going to pardon
with
Diddy.
A foreign country having a controlling interest in a U.S. steel company?
Well, let's look at this. When I came here, they were going to buy it, and Biden was going to approve it. All of a sudden, Biden didn't because he heard I wasn't going to. I don't want U.S. steel being owned by a foreign country. They can have they don't have a controlling. They have an investment. All they're going to have is an investment. I don't mind an investment in a company, but especially U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel for 15 years was the greatest company in the world, the greatest #1 company in the world, and I'm not going to let another country buy it. We had a great meeting on that, but they are allowed to invest in it, and that's...
Mr. President, on tariffs, sir, you talked about reciprocal tariffs coming in this week. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And are you announcing a plan for it this week?
Yeah, I'll be announcing probably Tuesday or Wednesday at a news conference reciprocal tariffs, and very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. That's all.
When does it go into effect, sir?
Almost immediately, but I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed, and it'll be great for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way.
This is on every country?
Every country will be reciprocal this way.
Mr. President, can you confirm that
it won't affect everybody because there's somewhere we have similar tariffs. But the ones that are taking advantage of the United States, we're going to have it's reciprocity, it's reciprocal. We're going to have a reciprocal tariff. But we'll have a news conference Tuesday or Wednesday.
And just on the steel question, just so I understand you correctly.
We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday.
Tomorrow?
Monday, yeah, tomorrow.
What countries will those go on?
Everybody. Steel.
Including Canada and Mexico?
Yeah. Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
10%?
No, 25%.
25 for aluminum?
25 for both.
And on steel, sir, are you ruling out then Nippon Steel having a 51% stake or higher? They won't have a majority stake?
Nobody can have a majority stake for U.S. Steel. They can for other companies, but not for U.S. Steel. I think you agree with that, Doug. U.S. Steel was one of our great companies, and through a lot of stupidity and bad government and also bad management of the company, it lost that luster. But it's going to gain it back, and tariffs are going to help. Tariffs are going to make it very successful again. And I think it has good management now, too. Yeah.
Sorry, may I ask one, please? Can you tell me, can you confirm that you'll be meeting with MBS and Sisi of Egypt soon? Will that be at the White House? Or
well, I'll be meeting with all of them numerous times, by the way, but I'll be meeting with all of them. And yeah, I think that it's a big mistake to allow people, the Palestinians or the people living in Gaza, to go back yet another time. And we don't want Hamas going back. And think of it as a big real estate site. And the United States is going to own it and will slowly, very slowly, we're in no rush, develop it. We're going to bring stability to the Middle East, to a totally war-torn part of the Middle East, a part of the Middle East that has caused tremendous problem, the Gaza Strip, and we'll own it. It's totally demolished right now. It's a demolition site. It'll be reclaimed. It'll be leveled out, fixed up. There won't be anybody there. Hamas won't be there. We'll be building through other of the very rich countries in the Middle East. They'll be building some beautiful sites for the people, for the Palestinians to live in. They'll be living in harmony and peace probably for the first time in hundreds of years.
And just to clarify, I know you don't want to tell us about your conversation with President Putin, but can you clarify whether you had that since you've been in office, or whether it happened before you became president?
I've had it. Let's just say I've had it. And I expect to have many more conversations. We have to get that war ended. It's going to end. We have to get it ended. And we have to get it ended. So should have never happened, would have never happened if I was president.
Mr. President, a couple of years ago, your vice president said that suggested that if the Supreme Court rules in a way you don't like, just let them enforce it. Do you agree with that?
Say the last part.
The president suggested that if the Supreme Court rules in a way that you don't like, they can just enforce it by themselves. Do you agree with that?
I don't know even what you're talking about. Neither do you. Who are you with?
HuffPost, sir.
Who?
HuffPost.
On the one. I thought they died. Are they still around? I haven't read.
You literally gave them access to the Pentagon alongside Breitbart after cycling out the New York Times. No wonder you're with Huffington Post.
Them in years. I thought they died. All right, go ahead. Who else?
On security clearances, you've been yanking a lot of them. Why does it make the country safer to take away the AG's security clearance? And is that a form of retribution?
If there's somebody, no. If there are people that we don't respect, if there are people that we thought that were breaking the law, okay, very close to it in previous years, we do it. And we've done it with some people. We've done it with Biden himself. We think our country is not as safe if you gave him clearance. We don't think he knows what he's doing. And what he's done to this country is a disgrace. And what he's done in terms of allowing criminals, murderers, drug lords into our country, people from mental institutions into our country, he should be ashamed of himself.
Is that a legally valid reason?
On deportations, there's been some reporting that you've been upset that there haven't been more deportations. Can you clarify that?
I think they're doing an incredible job. It's very tough. Deportations, finding murderers is not easy. Some of them are actually very smart. They shouldn't be in our country. They wouldn't have been. We had beautiful, we just set records for closure. We have the strongest border we've had in many years, since my term. But even for many, many years, decades before that, No, they're doing an amazing job. I think Tom Homan's doing an amazing job. Christy Noman's doing an amazing job. But it's not easy finding murderers who know they're being looked for.
There's 29 of them.
But we're sending out thousands of people. We're getting rid of thousands of criminals from our country.
House, do you expect to meet him in person anytime? Putin. Do you anticipate meeting with him in person?
I imagine I would be meeting with Putin, yes, at the right time. I think at the right time, at the appropriate time.
Gaza. The White House press secretary told us last week that you're committed to rebuilding Gaza. Steve Witkoff said that process would take 10 to 15 years. Does your commitment to rebuilding Gaza extend beyond your time in office?
Committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices. But we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. The remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe. But we'll make it into a very good site for future development by somebody. We'll let other countries develop parts of it. It'll be beautiful. People can come from all over the world and live there. But we're going to take care of the Palestinians. We're going
Just not Palestinians. People from all around the world can come and live in Gaza, just not the Palestinians that live there. Okay? They're there already. We're going to kick them out. And also, you eating Korean food, my guy? Yes, I am. Insane stuff from Donald Trump.
We're going to make sure they live beautifully and in harmony and in peace, and that they're not murdered. This has been the most dangerous site anywhere in the world to live in. Hamas has been a disaster. And by the way, I have to tell you that I watched the hostages come back today, and they look like Holocaust survivors. They were in horrible condition. They were emaciated. It looked like many years ago, the Holocaust survivors. And I don't know how much longer we can take that when I watch that. I know we have a deal where we're supposed to they dribble in and keep dribbling in, but they are in really bad shape. They have been treated brutally, horribly. Even the ones that came out earlier, they were in a little bit better shape, but mentally they were treated so badly. Who could take that? You know, at some point, we're going to lose our patience. When I see that scene that I saw today with people coming out of helicopters and airplanes that are emaciated, that look like they haven't had a meal in a month, no reason for that. And I don't know how much longer we can take it.
Do you mean you want to recast the
I don't know how long we can take it. When I watch people that were healthy people a reasonably short number of years ago, and you look at them today, they look like they've aged 25 years. They literally look like the old pictures of Holocaust survivors. The same thing. I mean, the same thing. And I don't know how long we're going to take that.
Mr. President, have you gotten some advancement in your proposals for some of the Gulf or Arab nations to take some of the Palestinian people? And if not, like, what do you think the reason is for their hesitance? Is there some very honest reason that they've even told you privately, or that you think why they're hesitant to take the Palestinian people?
Why are they hesitant to take them? Because they never spoke to me. They spoke to other people. They didn't speak to me. When they speak to me, they're going to take them.
Is it because they think that you would not allow them to return to Gaza? Is that part of it?
They don't want to return to Gaza. If we could give them a home in a safer area, the only reason they're talking about returning to Gaza is they don't have an alternative. When they have an alternative, they don't want to return to Gaza. If they had a home that was safe, where you don't have Hamas threatening them, killing them, torturing them.
Yeah, it's Hamas.
They'd rather not return to Gaza.
It's definitely not Israel that blew up the entirety of the Gaza Strip.
As far as the other regions, the only reason they maybe don't act enthusiastic is they haven't talked to me. They talk to other people, but not to me. When they talk to me, they'll be enthusiastic.
And then on spending, you found some maybe questionable expenditures, or Elon Musk has found them?
Some questionable. The whole country looks like it's a fraud. It's fraud, waste, abuse, but it's a tremendous fraud. And what Elon and his group of geniuses have found is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And that's just in U.S. AID. Soon we're going into education. You'll find the same thing but bigger. Soon we're going into the military, and you're going to find a lot of bad things happening there. You'll find it because our government has not functioned properly for many, many years, and we're going to make it function properly. We're even looking at treasuries. There could be a problem. You've been reading about that with treasuries. And that could be an interesting problem because it could be that a lot of those things don't count. In other words, that some of that stuff that we're finding is very fraudulent. Therefore, maybe we have less debt than we thought of. Think of that. So a lot of things are happening, but Elon's doing an excellent job. We started with 12 guys with high IQs, and now we have 100 guys with very high IQs.
Do you think Congress has failed to do their oversight, or do you think your first administration, some of your cabinet agencies failed?
I think everybody failed. I think everybody failed.
Why does Elon's financial disclosure remain secret?
Because
Breaking news about Gaza. Trump, if all the hostages are not released by Saturday at 12 noon, the ceasefire should be called off and all hell will break loose. I'm so glad I'm 33 years old. And he's talking about all the hostages, not just the ones that were scheduled for release. As in, Donald Trump is going back to the hostage negotiation and saying, after spending the last week talking about how he's going to own Gaza personally and how he's not going to let any Palestinian remain there and that they have no right to return, even though they haven't left yet. They haven't been forced out yet. Now he's pulling the lever off the hostage negotiations and saying, actually, never mind. You're just going to release all the hostages and there's nothing you can do about it. And if that's not the case, all hell will break loose, which I suspect Israel at this stage is not capable of going back into Gaza on its own. I think you know what that means. You should take back the credit you gave him for stopping the war. You have to be very stupid if you think that I said Donald Trump is earnestly stopping the war. What did I tell you? I told you that this was a brief pause. I will celebrate any kind of stoppage of hostilities. Having said that, I told you consistently that he has a way more nefarious purpose behind his allegiances to Israel and that he was inevitably looking for permanent annexation of the West Bank. It's not exactly a prophetic take either. It's the obvious one.
Nobody's looking at that. We're looking at all the corruption that's taken place. I mean, his
and just like that,
is largely the number of shares that he's got in.
Just like that, Israeli jets are once again flying low over Gaza with drones buzzing overhead after Hamas announced it would delay the release of captives until Israel stops violating the ceasefire agreement. Liberals enjoy what's going to happen to Gaza just to own the left. I mean, it's not because they want to own the left. It's also because they just also like the stuff that's going on. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.